Namaste Saraswati Deve Gurvani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Vistarine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So just looking at some of the reviews by the academics in about Bhagavad Gita as it is. This is another one by Dr. Edward Dimmock from the Department of South Asian Languages and Civilization of the University of Chicago.
The Bhagavad Gita as it is by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is a welcome addition from many points of view. It can serve as a valuable textbook for the college student. It allows us to listen to a skilled interpreter explicating a text which has profound religious meaning. I think there will be little disagreement about the equality of the Swami Sanskrit scholarship. And finally, for the non-specialist, there is a readable English and a devotional attitude which cannot help but move the sensitive reader. The increasing numbers of Western readers interested in classical Vedic thought have been done a service by Swami Bhaktivedanta by bringing us a new and living interpretation of a text already known to many. He has increased our understanding manifold.
This was written many years ago, about 3 decades ago. So, and it's proved so true. So many Western people have become interested in Krishna consciousness, and really this is the blessing of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So yesterday we looked at how the chapter on nature, the enjoyer and consciousness, chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna describes in some detail about the nature of this world, the Prakriti. And now we're going to look at his describing the knower of the body, the field of activities, and also he's explaining about the super soul. So without further ado, is anybody who'd like to read the next few verses? 7 verses. Any volunteers? Naniben, you can?
Yeah, yes, unmuted, yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Nature, the enjoyer and the consciousness, text 13. I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which will be knowing you will taste the eternal Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and the subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material nature. Text 14. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the super soul exists, pervading everything. Text 15. The super soul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the mode of nature, and at the same time is the master of all the modes of material nature. Text 16. The Supreme Truth exists outside and inside of all living beings, the moving and the non-moving. Because he is subtle, he is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also near to us all. Text 17. Although the super soul appears to be divided among all beings, he is never divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devotes and develops all. Text 18. He is the source of all light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of the matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge, and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. Text 19. Thus the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, anyway. Very nice. So, previously he had been asked questions, 6 things to describe by Arjuna, and Krishna had addressed some of those issues, some of those descriptions is given about the Kshetra, Kshetragyan, knowledge he talked about, and we talked about that yesterday, the different aspects of knowledge, and we talked about especially humility, try to cultivate that. Now he describes the object of knowledge. He describes actually that personality that knows everything, like Madhusudan was yesterday explaining about the soul, but then there's a super soul. The soul understands perhaps a little bit about this body, but the super soul understands everything about everybody's body. So the purpose of knowledge is to realize the soul and the super soul, who are eternally individual, but at the same time intimately connected. It's our prerogative to actually understand the super soul. And super soul is, of course, unknowable, it's inconceivable. So how do we reconcile? This is one of those things which is inconceivable. So empiric researchers who try to fathom the Supreme using mundane logic and material sense perception inevitably will be baffled, because it's not possible to limit this unlimitless. So the super soul within remains unknowable. However, those who approach this matter with proper attitude, ready and willing to gain insight through the eyes of great teachers, through the eyes of scriptures, through the eyes of the devotees, they can surely realize the super soul, who is the object of all knowledge. So let's try to understand. This is the lesson, the difference between the soul and the super. We sort of discussed this somewhat, but we can do a little bit more analysis. What is the difference between the soul and the super soul? The differences are, again, unlimited, but we just categorize some of them so that we can understand in principle what are the differences. So here we've got a chart that distinguishes the soul and the super soul. So the living entities, us, we're known as Jivatma. We're tiny little sparks. And God, on the other hand, is the maintainer, is the creator, and he's also the destroyer. And he's also known as Paramatma. Atma means soul, Param, super soul. Param means topmost. The size of the soul, the individual Atma, is very tiny. It's described in one of the Puranas that the soul is, if you take a piece of hair and you chop the tip 100 times, and then again 100 times, so 1/10,000th the size of a tip of a hair, that's the size of the Atma. So it's very small, we are tiny, but this tiny Atma is extraordinarily powerful because it can control the body of an elephant or an amoeba or a human being, even though it's so tiny. Whereas the super soul is infinitely huge, unlimited. Another difference, the soul will be aware to a certain degree of its own body. But of course, we're not fully aware of our functions. We don't know when we eat something, how that process converts that food into energy and waste. And when we go to sleep, this body takes somehow or other, it works in such a phenomenal way that the food gives us energy and the waste is taken out at the same time. So we maybe know as to a certain degree of our body, but even our body, we don't fully know. We don't know how the hair on our head, whoever's got hair on their head, grows, for example. It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. How do our nails grow? These are things, even the most basic of functions, we don't really know. So whilst the soul is aware of the body, it's not fully aware of its full functions. But the super soul, on the other hand, is aware of everybody's body, and it's aware of everything around, even though he is, if you like, divided between us all. He's in all of us, but yet he's still one. This is the inconceivable nature of the man. Like he says, Krishna says, I am far away, but I'm also very close. So he's very close to us because he's seated right with us in this body, but he's far away because he's also in the spiritual world. And he's also far away because of our own ignorance. That's one of the main limitations that we have. Otherwise, we will be very close to him all the time. Oh, sorry. Just need to charge up the batteries. So, the soul is a secondary proprietor for this body, just like the citizen of the land is proprietor, but the land is already there. So even the gross elements that compose this body, they're already there. So we're like the secondary proprietor of this body. It's just like the people who own houses, they're secondary proprietors. The land is already there. It's already actually owned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We're just caretakers. So similarly, we are caretakers of this body on behalf of the Supreme Lord. Whereas the Super Soul is the proprietor of all bodies. He owns everything. He's the king of the land, basically. Another distinction, the soul is, again, the secondary controller of senses. So what does that mean? That basically these senses that we have, like we discussed yesterday, the eyes and the ears, we control them to a degree. But ultimately, the main controller is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Rishikesh. Rishikesh means controller of the senses. So he is actually the controller. We attempt to control the senses, but we usually fail because of our weakness of heart. The soul is fallible, which means he can deviate between the spiritual world and the material world. He may not be fixed. He may not, unlike the Supreme Lord, who's infallible. The Lord is completely fixed. He cannot be shaken because he is the Supreme Lord. Whereas the Jivatma is tiny. Sometimes it can come under the influence of material nature. Sometimes it takes to the spiritual nature. But because of this infallibility, it leviates between the two. And in our situation, that is very much the case. We're trying to become more and more spiritually aware, but the nature of this world is the soul can become entangled within material nature, material temptations. The soul is also a servant. It's actually the most important part of its constitutional life, if you like. It's a servant. We're always serving somebody, whether we're serving the country, the society, the family, the spouse, the children, the pets, or our senses. We're always serving somebody. Whereas the Supreme Lord, he's got the superior position, that he is the master. He's the one who is served. But as we've discussed previously, the servant, properly situated in his constitutional position, enjoys more than the master. So we won't go into that topic today because we're just looking at the soul and the super soul. But the master doesn't necessarily mean that the Supreme Lord is a dictator, my way or the highway sort of thing. He's a loving master. This is the point, a loving master. And in fact, he doesn't even want to be the master. And he won't show himself as the master, especially if one has a certain relationship with him. And in terms of the soul, there are unlimited numbers of souls, unlimited. We cannot even guess, you can't even imagine how many souls there are in existence. Whereas the super soul, there is only one. Although he extends himself to every atom, there's still only one supreme soul. So good to understand the difference between us, the soul, and the super soul, so that we don't make the mistake of thinking, I am God. It's very important to understand that. So, Madhusan Prabhu, would you like to comment?
Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol, everyone.
Yeah, we are struggling this side because there's so much noise going on outside us. But I'm sure devotees will be able to hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me all right? Yeah, this part is quite interesting as well, because the soul, the super soul, and then we have the body. So the body is the field of activities, and we are limited, and super soul is unlimited in one sense. So, you know, when you say we are fallible, whereas the super soul is infallible, we're prone to making mistakes. Our senses are not perfect. Krishna's senses are transcendental senses. So although Prabhupada in the purport, explains how Krishna is so far away in the spiritual world and he's doing his activities, transcendental activities, but here we are, as a tiny little soul offering a flower or a fruit, and he can extend his arm and still accept it. That shows his omnipotence. And his senses are transcendental. So if he wants to, there's no limit to Krishna. If he wants to eat with his eyes, he can eat with his
That's good.
He can hear with his eyes. They're not limited like our senses. Our senses can only do one time. And they're also imperfect, and we can't even see beyond the wall, the other side of the wall. But Krishna is transcendental, so he can see beyond. And also the super soul in the Sutta is described how there are two birds sitting on a branch of a tree, and one bird is focused on the fruit of the tree and just enjoying it, and is not even aware that there's another bird sitting next to it who is actually providing the whole tree, who has made arrangements for all the fruit fructified on the tree, and the soul is just enjoying that fruit. And the super soul is the one who's made all these arrangements. The super soul is like the other bird, but you're not even aware of it. So when the other bird was enjoying the fruit, suddenly realized, hang on a minute, there's another bird sitting next to me, and changes the consciousness, because he's only conscious of the fruit and the material activities. Then he becomes conscious, and that's what this Krishna consciousness means. We are aware now that, oh, hang on a minute, there's another super soul who's making all these arrangements. Paramatma. He's also accompanying me all the time. He's been there all the time, and he's been my best friend. He's been my provider, and who's been looking after me and making all these different arrangements as per my desires. So it's a nice analogy, you suddenly realize, there is Krishna, but then there is the other aspects of, the super soul as all pervading and all knowing. But when in one purport, Prabhupada says, the monists think that all these three aspects combined become one. Also, they have a monist, but then we have polytheists. So devotees don't accept that. Actually, we keep that as a separate. They are separate, and there are three aspects, and they're the three aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Madhusan. It's very good points about how the Lord can eat with any part of his body. His senses are not limited, whereas ours are limited. Very nice point. Thank you for that. Any questions? Any comments? Yeah, background noise. That's unfortunate. I'm sorry about
Drilling
that.
in the house.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry about that. Apologies for that.
Okay. Prabhuji,
Yes.
when Madhusudan Prabhuji explained the soul is enjoying the fruits, enjoying the activities, and the super soul is just watching him. Can you, I
Yeah.
didn't understand what activities, I know soul is very active, but is enjoying the fruits of the activities. Is
Yeah.
it?
Yes, that's right. He gave a good example. This is an example given in the scriptures, how there's two parrots in the tree. One is eating the fruits, the other is watching. So the super soul is regarded as witnessing, protecting, guiding, and recording our activities. So that's the function of the super soul. It's a witness, basically. Witness, protecting, and the soul is attempting to enjoy in this world. That's absolutely right. That's how it is conveyed in the Vedic scriptures. We are trying to enjoy the fruits of our labor in this world, not understanding that actually we are just one of the factors of activities. That actually activities done by material nature, the soul is simply one who desires, and then the Lord, through his material energy, fulfills those desires. So that is absolutely right. There's two personalities in this body. One is the one who's trying to enjoy, that's us, and the other is the super soul, the witness, the protector, and the guide. That is correct.
So desires are with the soul. Is it what we're doing is because of our desires which rest with the soul?
Correct.
I
So
see.
we desire, and those desires are fulfilled by our Supreme Father. Just like the children, they desire so many. Let's go to the beach. Let's eat pizza. So the father and the family, the mother would fulfill those desires. So in the same way, the soul desires with the children, and the father and mother, they fulfill those desires.
Yeah, I just want to tell Mataji it was very, very good question for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Roma.
Yeah, it's very nice question, really.
And Naniben, does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, one thing is still not clear. So when we do something like I want to eat a banana or I want to eat a mango now, that desire is coming from my soul.
Well, good question. Sometimes the mind can make it look like it's the soul's desire. So we have to be a little careful, because actually to enjoy a material thing is generally the function of the mind.
Okay.
It's the mind convincing us that this is what the soul needs. But actually, in most cases, we don't need most of the things that we desire. The fundamental desires of the soul are basically wanting to serve. That's the fundamental desire of the soul. But at the moment, those desires are contaminated by material thoughts. So the mind plays a big part in basically, what do you say, making it look like these are our desires, but actually.
So when you desire, when you say, "Oh, I want to eat a banana," then who were you trying to serve by eating the banana?
Yeah, it is the soul or my body.
It's ego, maybe.
No, soul.
Soul, I think.
Yeah, soul.
I think so, ego.
No. Ego plays a different part. Soul is soul and super soul work together.
So I am not this body. I am the soul. So
soul doesn't want to eat.
Yeah, the soul is the active.
Yeah, the matter wants the banana. The
banana wants ego.
Matter is the body. So you need to eat something.
Well, basically, you're trying to serve your sense of taste.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
And the sense of taste is what you want, your sweetness, the banana and all that. And also, because the body is actually that's what we're talking about here. That is the Kshetragna, the field. And the field is the body, and the body has been provided by the Supreme Lord. It has to be maintained. So you need the nutrition from the banana and everything. So your body will tell you as well that I need these nutritions. You need to keep your immune system strong as well, especially at this time of the when there's virus flying around everywhere. And so you will want to defend your body, or there are these subtle messages coming in all different ways. But the soul is ultimately, that's desire. We are here because we wanted to be here. We wanted to be independent of Krishna, so we are here. Krishna says, yes, you go. But then, why is a criminal, a murderer, why is he in the prison? Because he committed a crime. He's there in the prison. And, that's obviously that's in a negative sense. He's actually committed a crime and he's doing his time and he's doing his punishment. And that is there. But he had the choice not to, he had a choice to follow the law and not end up in the prison. But
Soul doesn't want realization.
Not only that, Lord is providing and fulfilling the desires of so many. You desire banana, somebody else desire something else, and somebody desires to. So all these intricate arrangements are all interconnected. Just a bit like this internet now, we're all individually at our device, but we're all somehow connected. And this Zoom has made this arrangement, the facility. So here we are, discussing.
It's coming from me, from my mind.
So I'll give you an example. What your noticing example was good. If body needs nourishment, we have a banana. But if suddenly the thought comes into my mind, I am hungry for pizza. Now that is not necessarily, it's a desire of the mind.
Yeah.
We need pizza. We just need some nourishment. Some food. But if, say, the thought process becomes, I am hungry for pizza, then actually that is the desire of the mind, as opposed to, and that's where the I comes in, that's right, and the false ego aspect which Roma was talking about. It's all interlinked. But if we just want nourishment for the body, because the body will need to get nourished, and the soul desire is to keep the body nourished, by having a banana or whatever, that is fine. But then when it extends to other tastes we're trying to satisfy, that is the mind functioning. That is not necessarily the desire of the soul. But
other way, like I want to study Gita, that desire to study, it is coming from the soul, is it?
Correct.
Yes, because soul wants a realization. Mataji, your was good question and a very good answer. You ask yourself and you're answering yourself. It's
yes.
correct.
Time to think, Roma.
But at the same time, say if somebody wants to read the Gita, because it's a novel, right? It's another book they want to read because they've read all the other books. It's just another book. It's just a novel. Then that is not necessarily the desire of the soul. That's just the mind being inquisitive. But when you actually want to understand the absolute truth, and Krishna explains this in the 7th chapter, the 4 different types of people who approach him. One of them is that person who wants to understand the absolute truth. So that is the desire of the soul. That's
yes. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just one point, Madhusudan made a nice point about the two souls. There's the Christian fable, which somebody is maybe aware of, where this man is with God and he's looking at his footprints on the beach. And he's seeing throughout his life, there's always been two sets of footprints, except the difficult times. And this man says to the Lord, when I had my difficult times, I only see one set of footprints. Where were you, my dear Lord? So the Lord said to him, actually, those were not your footprints. They're my footprints. I was carrying you. So we will find that in our lives as well, when we go through very, very difficult patches and we go through and we take shelter of the Lord will carry us through those difficult times. Hence why, even when we have good times, and especially when we have good times, it's the time to really take shelter of the Supreme Lord, the Super Soul. Any other questions, any other
Therefore,
points?
it becomes very important to really check our desires, you know.
That's one of our lessons. Do I really need this when we go to a shop? Do I really, really need this? Do I really, really need this? And usually we find that by the third time we ask, we don't really need it.
So be careful what we desire, you know. And they do come true, you see.
Any other questions? Any other points?
Hare Krishna, Nabi. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, please go on. You go on first, then.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to ask about the fallible quality of the soul. So you know, when you achieve one of the, if you are lucky enough to achieve one of the spiritual planets, so like Gokul, Vrindavan, or Vaikuntha, is it? I read somewhere that once you attain that, it's like unlikely that you'll come down again to the material world. But is it possible, or do you lose that fallible aspect once you achieve the spiritual realm?
Yes, good question. Actually, we asked that of our spiritual master when he was here. And his answer was such an amazing answer. He said that once the soul goes back to the spiritual world, he will remember his time in this material world. And he will never forget. So when he's back in the spiritual world, he will never have the desire to be away from the Lord again. So from that point of view, he will be infallible, because he will be completely fixed in his determination that he does not want to return to this world again. However, the nature of the soul is it is fallible. So there's nothing to stop one coming back again. But he won't, because he's had the experience, like the child who touches the fire. He'll never touch it again because he's experienced the pain it causes. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Bhavani, actually, I had a question for you, Bhavani. I kept
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
forgetting to ask you, were you happy with Krishna's answer in the 12th chapter?
Yeah, yes.
That's good.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. Here, actually, I just want to say my understanding Mataji's question. So, where the desire come from? So, in my view, it's from mind, because soul is untouchable. Soul hasn't got anything. Obviously, we when we have a desire of eating banana, we are satisfying our one of the senses. Satisfying senses means I can say in Hindi, truth. So when you are satisfying your senses, I think that's again attaining the spirituality. So that's what I understand. So because soul hasn't got any feeling, our soul witness what we are doing.
No,
That's what my understanding.
your feelings, Bhavani.
But I thought, Bhavani, that soul has no, it just witnesses what we are doing. That's what I've always thought.
No, the soul is very much an integral part of the feelings, the desires. The soul is not a witness. It is a witness in one witnessing whilst the body is being controlled by the mind. Yes, from that point of view, it's a witness, because it's a little bit like that picture from the Krishna's, the Bhagavad Gita, where you got the 5 horses and you got the rein, which control the horses, the intelligence, and then you've got the mind, which is trying to control the rein, the mind is going to control the reins, but then you've got the soul, who's the passenger, who's terrified. That's when the soul is not in control. But when the soul is in control, when you are in control of the intelligence, the mind, and the ego, then you are the driver. Absolutely, you are the driver. You desire, you have senses, but they are spiritual. They're not contaminated by the material senses that we currently have of this body. So, in one sense, you're absolutely right. Vast majority of the desires are actually just the mind playing tricks.
Yeah.
But when those desires are, like Madhusudan said, control what desires we have. Once we control our desire, then we'll see the desire of the soul, which is this great longing of wanting to be with the Lord again.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So the question I want to ask is, who is the witness? Is the super soul the witness, or the soul is the witness? And which?
Yeah, that part I really don't know, Prabhuji, but I just heard from other books also, our soul usually witness and mind desires. That's why Lord Krishna give us this body he gave some freedom to make our own choices. He just said, you make choices, you choose the way you wanted to go. Obviously, results only I'll give you the result based on the path you choose. So that's how I think he gave us this freedom for the souls, whoever take birth on the earth, to fulfill their desires, obviously attain the moksha
And to act.
based on those desires.
So in that case, the soul isn't the witness, it's actually making choices, right?
Isn't super soul the witness?
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, this part I don't know, honestly. That's why I just said I just know only half of it, only the concept of soul. But yes, super soul I just heard today. So yes, this is something I need to think. We need to think how the connection.
Bhavani, is this the first time you're hearing about the super soul?
No. I mean, obviously, in this Bhagavad Gita, last couple of times we've been hearing. So, but yes, connection. I never think very deeply how the soul, soul and super soul connection, and how it connects to our body.
And now, does it make a little bit more sense?
Yes, definitely.
Brilliant.
The question I want to ask is there such a thing as spiritual activity?
Yeah, so interesting, just a spiritual activity for realization. He doesn't interesting soul about materialistic nothing, in my opinion. He wants to just move us to God, to Krishna.
Yeah. So when we are sitting in a total dark room, we are totally ignorant of anything that's in the room. We can't see, we don't know what there is, what there isn't. And suddenly you happen to step on something that felt like a serpent or a snake, and you suddenly think that, this is total darkness here. I don't know what it is, and I've stepped on something and it feels like a serpent and a snake. And then suddenly somebody comes in and switches on the light. Immediately everything, within a second, everything around you is suddenly you're aware of it.
That's good.
And then you suddenly realize that what you're stepping on is not a serpent, but it's a rope. And then all the fear of that snake is gone completely. And you can stand on that rope for 1,000 years and you'll never be afraid of it anymore at all. So the spiritual knowledge is a bit like that. As soon as our ignorance is gone in the spiritual knowledge, everything is cognizant. Everyone is full of knowledge. Everything is full of bliss. So spiritual activity, then we are doing that in serving the Supreme Lord, according to in his pastimes or whatever, his transcendental. I'm just still trying to understand whether people understand that whether the soul is the active principle, or is it the mind, or is it the body? The body, I mean, from everyday experience, once the soul is gone, the body becomes totally inactive. So it was just a vehicle. Same thing with the mind. Is it a vehicle, or is it really the real active principle? So yeah, there is some conceptions here which are not, well, getting clear anyway, slowly, I think.
That's good. And Roma, you're right. Ultimately, if the soul is has only spiritual desires, then he just wants to go back to the Supreme Personality of God.
Yes, what I wanted to explain, but sorry, my English sometimes lacking. But
We understand.
means what that?
No, that's correct. However, at the moment, because we are associating with this world and this body, our desires have become perverted. And we are thinking they're the soul's desires, but actually mostly they're desires of the mind. When we want to again reconnect with the Supreme Soul, then these are genuine spiritual desires, especially when they are to connect us again with our ultimate situation where we originally came. Any other questions or comments? Pitamba? Okay. I think the next theme is a huge one. I don't think we should go into it today because it's going to take time. It's all about consciousness. Because this chapter is called Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. Consciousness of ourselves. So I think this discussion we're having today was very good prelude to the discussion we're going to have tomorrow, because it's a question of improving our consciousness. Because at the moment, our consciousness is material consciousness. Our desires are material desires. And the next theme is how to make those desires spiritual, how to make our consciousness pure. So I think rather than rush through it today, we'll have a look at it tomorrow. Tomorrow is actually also the disappearance day of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Gauri Das Pandit. So we'll have a look at these two wonderful personalities as well, and I think finish off chapter 13. So I hope that's okay with the devotees. If there's any quick comments or questions or any realizations, you're welcome to share them. Now is a good time if you want to.
I'm glad there are people like me who partly understand and partly don't understand. So we are on the path of learning. So I think you all are helping us to learn or onto the correct path. I'm glad that I'm not the only one. We all are in this together.
Actually, I will have to confess to you, Nalini, that I am probably the most ignorant and am probably benefiting the most out of all of this learning.
Yeah.
So I'd like to thank you all actually for questions, your participation. It just inspires us to do more, to try to understand who we actually are and what we're supposed to be doing in this world. So you're in good company, Nalini.
Sorry?
You're in good company.
Yeah, definitely. Like the last conversation just sparked a realization sort of within me when I had this question answered through the seminars about why we ended up coming here and why we gave up our position. And then kind of the comment about us being fearful, the soul being fearful because it's controlled by the mind, made more sense to me, because I think we had that small desire to try and understand what it was like to sort of be like Krishna, which is what led us to have our disconnect. But as you can see, that we have come now into this very fearful position because we can't even really control our own field of activity. We're controlled by the desires of the mind and the material modes. And then now, so that was the sort of realization that I had.
Thank you for sharing that. That was a really important share, actually. Well done, Sanjana. Very important point. Yeah, because we want to try to enjoy separate from the Lord. He fulfills that desire, hence why He's created this world for us. But, of course, and that's why He's always with us as well. The super soul is actually a very kind aspect, or compassionate aspect of the Lord. He cares for us so much. We may be in the body of a pig, doing all sorts of nonsense, body of an amoeba, doesn't matter. He will always be with us, guiding us, protecting us. And of course, He's the witness as well. But His role, the main role of the super soul, is not that of a witness. It's that of a guide and a protector. And He's just waiting for us to turn our faces towards Him. And as soon as we do that, then we will become much, much closer to Him.
Yeah, exactly. I think there couldn't be a better example of Krishna being our ever well-wisher than the fact that even when we seemingly create our own difficulties, He still attempts to protect us. He still attempts to sort of alleviate those difficulties. Even when we're trying to say, oh no, I'm the controller, I have ultimate free will, I want to do what I want to do. He still says, okay, you do that, and even though that's going to put you into something else, I'll still try and make it a little bit easier for you.
It's really nicely put. You know, I think once you've understood the philosophy much better, which you've already understood it well, I think you should start thinking about giving discourses on these matters, because you put it so nicely as well. So anyway, this is part of the art.
I think
Thank you. Thank you,
I
Hare
think
Krishna.
that point by Sanjana last week is very good, actually, good realization, because that's why, you know, when Arjun is on the battlefield and then he suddenly takes this vow that I'm going to kill, who was it? By sunset, I'm going to kill him. And then Krishna says, why do you put yourself in these situations, you know? You are a Kshatriya and you're passionate and you just throw yourself into this vow, and because you declare it, you know, you declare it boldly, I'm going to kill, who is it? Jarasandha, isn't it?
Jayadratha.
Yeah, he said, I'm going to kill by sunset. And then Krishna said, okay, so now you won't be able to focus on your archery and all that much. Now you'll be focused on the sunset. When is the sunset? When is the sunset? Is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? And I've got to get you out of this mess now. And like that, you know, we end up desiring and all that. So Krishna is there as a well-wisher. Yeah, nice point there. Nice, thank you.
Actually, thank you, Madhusubha. You reminded me of another scenario when Yudhishthira at the end of the battle, there was only Duryodhan left from the other side, and Yudhishthira said to Duryodhan, who was in the middle of the lake, he said, if you win, you can choose anyone you want to fight with, any one of us, 1-to-1 combat. And if you win, you can have the whole kingdom. And at that time, Krishna said to Yudhishthira, why do you keep doing this? I have to work so hard.
Yeah. But Krishna doesn't interfere. He does allow their free will and free choice of action, you know. But then he knows that these are my devotees, you know, and yeah, they've chosen him to be on their side. So.
And the thing is also,
thank you.
If we understood how bad we are, how many times we've denied God, we've blamed Him, we've cursed Him. You know, not just in this life, but life after life after life after life. And yet, He still persists on being with us. His compassion is...
Yeah, and then he sends his Bhagavad Gita past you. Then he'll send his devotees, and he sends Prabhupada, and so all the arrangements that he makes for us to at least wake up and realize. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. Those are interesting discussions today. I hope everybody's happy. And if anybody is not necessarily happy, we'll probably take this up again tomorrow, because it's we're going to be talking about our levels of consciousness. So thank you very much. So Karuna Bandha, and sorry Karuna,